Chapter 1: The Descent of Justice. In the vast expanse of space, there was no end to the galaxy's secrets. Stars gleamed like forgotten hopes, while countless planets orbited, bathed in light or swallowed by darkness. Among them, the human race had found its place within the unforgiving expanse, driven by a mixture of ambition, resolve, and a bitter hunger to survive. But nothing in the endless universe prepared humanity for the storm that would break upon them, a storm born not from asteroids or starfire, but from a once ally now turned enemy: the Galactic Empire. The Galactic Empire had once been an aspirational figure for many worlds in the galaxy. Known for its highly organized military might, swift justice, and strict hierarchy, the Empire seemed as if it were the natural order of the cosmos, until they became a plague upon humanity. Everything began with the disappearance of 5 human war prisoners held in Imperial custody. Captured after a failed assault against a nearby neutral colony, these soldiers were presumed to be held for diplomatic bargaining, a seemingly harmless gesture of negotiation. But that assumption would be shattered. A transmission came through at dawn from the Empire's command ship, an ominous message presented in a simple tone that sent ripples of dread across Earth's command center. Humanity is not fit to negotiate. Your soldiers met their end with no mercy. The transmission was clear. The prisoners had been executed. No warning, no trial, just the silent command of the Galactic Emperor. As news spread through Earth, an eerie silence gripped the capitals of Earth's most prominent powers. Families mourned, and military commanders turned bitter. Some were content with diplomacy, hoping against hope for some kind of peace. Others, enraged and fueled by national pride, began to plot retaliatory strikes. "We will not stand for this," President Alara Sanchez declared in a televised address. Her voice echoed the anger that coursed through every soul on Earth. The cold, calculating empire would feel Earth's wrath soon enough. The world's leaders gathered in secrecy, and within their tightly guarded vaults, the future of their species was discussed. From that moment on, humanity would not rest until they fought back. A war would come, one where no side would know mercy, and where no truce would be called. Chapter 2: The Vanguard Rising. When war arrived, it arrived swiftly. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity's ability to mobilize. The first strike from Earth, led by Commander Michael Harris, was simple, sending a reconnaissance fleet into the Empire's controlled sectors. Initially meant to gather intel and serve as a demonstration of their unwillingness to back down, it was more of a warning shot than anything else. However, the response from the Empire was merciless. The Imperial fleet engaged immediately, decimating Earth's fragile first-wave fleet. Without hesitation, the Empire declared humanity's actions an act of war and initiated a planetary-wide lockdown on Earth's colonies. "Do you hear the silence?" The voice of the Emperor echoed through the tactical networks, just as Earth's forces began to scramble in response. "Your war is nothing compared to the destruction we are capable of bringing. You have been judged and found wanting." From that moment on, Earth's command had one goal: revenge. A long and dark path of retaliation now stretched before them. The finest of Earth's pilots, engineers, and generals joined the ranks of the Vanguard, the spearhead of Earth's resistance. A unified human fleet, vastly outnumbered but desperate to defend their way of life, took to the stars with every weapon they could muster. The greatest minds on Earth worked tirelessly. New technology emerged: graviton blasters, better shields, cloaking devices, all designed to answer back to the superior firepower of the Empire. Humans fought hard and fast, determined to strike fear in the heart of their tormentors. Each strike was more precise, more efficient, aimed not at surviving the Empire's assaults, but at delivering a devastating blow. And as the first human battleship, Aegis Prime, deployed into the heart of enemy space, Commander Harris could only think of one thing: justice. They would make the Empire feel the anguish they had caused. They would make the entire galaxy remember that even a young species could rise to become a force too powerful to ignore. The war had begun. Chapter 3: The Reckoning. Admiral Victor Crane stood aboard the bridge of the UHF Resolute, watching the enormous holographic map of the galaxy flicker before him. His hands were clenched into fists. The news had reached them, clear and undebatable. The Galactic Empire had slaughtered over 3,000 human prisoners taken during the last skirmish. Not a single one survived. The tactical reports were filled with screams, whispers of broken bones, and horrifying last transmissions from those soldiers. The transmissions painted a vivid picture of a brutal execution in the hands of a military dictatorship bent on erasing humanity's spirit. "Sir," his communications officer said with the gravitas of a court historian, "we've intercepted Galactic Empire transmissions." They bragged about it. They said our prisoners were nothing more than cattle. Crane's jaw tightened. He had always known that the Empire was cold and unforgiving, but hearing this in black and white stirred an anger deep within him. A part of him wondered if he should feel pity for the Empire. After all, humans were the ones who had raised arms against them. However, as he stared out the window of his flagship, watching stars flit by, he realized something that was no longer relevant. What was the cruelty unleashed by the Empire on humanity's soldiers. The order had already come through from the Earth Directorate. Human forces would engage in an all-out war, nothing short of total victory. The planet, Earth itself, had given the order, and now, humans would strike back with everything they had. "Gather the fleet," Admiral Crane ordered, his voice steady, but his eyes burned with fury. "Let's show them what happens when you break the bloodline." Chapter 4. Preparing the Offensive. As word of war spread throughout the human fleet, humanity's resolve hardened. Fleet commanders, technicians, strategists, and every soldier began the mobilization process. Within days, dozens of fleet vessels left Earth's orbit, rallying at the central command hub of the war effort, the Mars colonies. General Sarah Flynn, an officer renowned for her tactical prowess, was already working on the next steps for humanity's retaliatory strike. She knew that this wasn't just a military campaign, it was a fight for the survival of the human species. "Intel says the Empire's eastern flank is vulnerable, but they've moved reinforcements to their capital," she said, reviewing tactical reports with her senior command team. "We won't have a chance to hit their supply lines directly. If we move too far into their sphere, we risk being stretched thin." Victor Crane's voice rang in her comms channel, breaking through the static. "Our best shot is hitting their communications hub. If we silence their long-range commands, we weaken their control and force them to recall resources. We need to create chaos in their command chains. At that point, we strike the heart." A hologram flickered and shifted, showing a red planet, the Empire's central world. Flynn scanned the projections, her mind calculating odds. This was no longer the routine war game of simulations. "Admiral, if we can silence their messaging satellites, I can cripple their nerve center, at least temporarily. But the only way to breach is if we hit from multiple entry points." "What will it cost us?" Crane asked. "Lives. It will cost us lives, Admiral. We can't hide from that truth. This will be a massacre on both sides," she answered. The two were silent for a long while. "Make the preparations, General. We are going to make history." And so the wheels were set into motion, the first of many battles, as both humanity and the Empire prepared for their first true clash of the war. Chapter 5. The Declaration of War. The massacre was swift, brutal, and unprovoked. The Galactic Empire, a power bent on expanding its grasp over the universe, had made a chilling move against the humans, a race that had once been their allies. In the coldest of gestures, the Empire executed hundreds of human prisoners of war, a demonstration of cruelty that reached all corners of the galaxy. The human survivors watched the footage in horror. A once proud species, caged like animals, bound by the vile hands of their captors, now left to decompose in the infinite void. Their fate was sealed by a regime that viewed them as nothing more than pawns in a power struggle for dominance. Humanity's leaders met in a council room deep inside the remains of their once glorious capital planet. The air was thick with rage and frustration. Several decades of diplomacy, alliances, and peace talks had crumbled, erased by the Empire's actions. Words could no longer fix what had been broken. It was time for action. For war. General Cassandra Ray stood before a table covered in holographic displays. The bright blue star projected a somber reflection of the flags draped across the room, the red and gold emblem of the United Earth Federation, the largest governing body of the human race. It had to be done. There was no room for hesitation. Our people, she began in a calm but authoritative voice, have been humiliated, slaughtered without mercy. We can no longer remain silent. The Empire's bloodlust knows no bounds. This is no longer a diplomatic failure. It is war. Her words settled heavily among the leaders. The planetary governors and military strategists exchanged worried but resolute glances. They all knew the cost of war against the Galactic Empire. They had faced this behemoth before in small skirmishes and failed offensives, but this was different. Now it was all out. They were no longer responding to isolated attacks. The Empire had declared humanity's extinction, and it was time to retaliate. President Waverly Taylor, her voice unwavering, leaned over the table. We've called for peace and tolerance for years, but peace is a distant dream. It is time to defend humanity. It is time we send them a message they can never forget. The Council agreed. A resolution was passed, and in a matter of hours, all broadcasts across human colonies were filled with the same grim message. The Empire has crossed a line. Humanity will no longer tolerate their tyranny. From this moment forward, war is declared. All forces are now mobilized. We will not stand down. Chapter 6: The First Offensive. The war machine roared to life across human territories. Industrial ships, fighter fleets, and even the newly built behemoth warships, the Crusaders, began to swarm across the vast distances of the galaxy. The first major offensive struck like lightning, an audacious raid aimed at one of the Empire's most critical starbases. Admiral John Hale stood on the bridge of UEF Omen, the flagship of humanity's combined forces. His stern gaze was fixed on the central holographic screen that depicted the approach to an Empire-occupied system. As a strategist, he had planned every move carefully. But now, as they prepared to strike their first blow, the uncertainty loomed large. This was no longer an isolated clash. This was the beginning of all-out war. "We hit them hard," Hale said, his voice calm but with an unmistakable edge. "They might think they've broken us, but they've only woken the sleeping beast. Today, we show them what it means to go too far." A crew member reported, "Admiral, we are within range of the starbase. Commence the attack. All ships, lock weapons and fire," Hale ordered. The sudden fury of missiles, plasma blasts, and fighter ships weaving through the void was a powerful statement. For the first time in years, humanity was fighting back with everything they had. No quarter was given, no mercy shown. While the Empire was far superior in numbers, the humans' adaptability, their unwavering will to survive, made them more dangerous than anything the Empire had encountered before. Each strike from humanity was a strike of defiance, a refusal to go down without a fight. As the raid advanced, the battleship Omen cut through the Empire's defenses like a knife through flesh. The starbase, caught by surprise, fell under an assault that left its heavily armored hull quivering and smoking. After what felt like hours of intense fire exchange, the station finally breached, a resounding victory that sent ripples across the galaxy. The message was clear: humanity was no longer a passive player in galactic politics. They had declared war on the Empire, and they would not surrender until justice was done. In the command center aboard Omen, General Ray received the news. A smile crossed her lips as she looked out at the swirling star systems. The war has begun. Now, let's see how they respond. Chapter 7: The Spark of Vengeance. The universe had watched in horror, but none could deny the resolve in the hearts of humankind. When the Galactic Empire, in a cold, calculated move, executed the last of the human prisoners of war, men, women, and children alike, their death did not pass in silence. It was the murder of their own, their brothers and sisters from various worlds and colonies, that pushed humanity over the precipice. General Amelia Darkstorm stood in the War Council room, her dark eyes cold and steely beneath her silver, battle-worn armor. The room buzzed with heated voices. Military strategists, political officials, and intelligence officers all clamored with suggestions. But the general didn't listen. She had heard it all before. "This is it, isn't it, Amelia?" Admiral Tarnus CORR, her closest ally, asked softly, his voice laced with bitterness. The news had spread like wildfire. The Galactic Empire, in its ultimate cruelty, had made public executions of the last remaining human POWs. Amelia's clenched fist trembling at her side, her heart filled with the weight of countless memories, but also a smoldering inferno. Humanity could stand no more of their empire's tyranny. "Too many years we've tolerated their whims." General Darkstorm's voice rang out, silencing the chaos in the room. Her chest tightened with grief, but her words were laced with rage. "This isn't just a retaliation. It's a reckoning. We bring the war to them, and we make them bleed." Admiral Sior looked at her gravely, nodding in agreement. "Humanity will follow you, Amelia." And with the final blow they struck, "No alliance will stand in our way. We don't seek a surrender. We seek obliteration. We will show them what it means to cross the line," she continued, her hands now resting firmly on the map table that displayed enemy star systems. "Let this war stretch across every corner of the galaxy. This ends with them." The room fell silent as her words sank in. A chilling understanding settled in. The true cost of vengeance had begun. Chapter 8. The First Strike. Battle Stations. The words echoed through the dimly lit hangar of the human cruiser Vengeance. Amelia stood at the command center, overseeing the readiness of the fleet. Ships of every design and class, ranging from aging civilian transports outfitted for combat to military-grade warships built specifically for this moment, were preparing for the first wave of human retaliation. Her fingers danced across the control panels as she gave orders to engage the fleet's hyperdrive engines. The coordinates were clear. The Empire would never see them coming. Amelia's heart burned, not with fear, but with a fire that had ignited in the hearts of the oppressed. If they wanted war, they'd give them a war like never before. Every soldier, every vessel, now held one objective: to shatter the Empire's reign of terror. The fleet surged forward, breaking the edge of the human systems and launching into enemy space. Amelia's fleet was set to attack an outlying Imperial station orbiting a gas giant, a target meant not only to cripple the Empire's military presence, but to send a message. The first blow would reverberate for days. "Engage full assault." General Darkstorm's voice rang out in the comms, chillingly decisive. Her orders reached each ship in the fleet, and the mission was set into motion. For a moment, there was silence, a tense stillness before the war began anew. And then, without warning, the first salvo was fired. Turrets on human ships lit up the cosmos with a shower of blinding light, and explosions rocked the station. "They're not ready for this," one of the tactical officers whispered to his console mate. "Our humans are built for this. Survival. Grit. We'll bleed them all the way back to their doorstep." The assault was merciless and swift. Station defense systems, still reeling from the sudden, unexpected attack, failed to repel the first strike. Fires raged across the station as multiple sections ruptured. Casualties mounted on both sides, but it was clear that the Empire, distracted by its pursuit of dominance, hadn't foreseen the return of its greatest threat, humanity's wrath. Admiral Sior, his own ship at the heart of the offensive, pushed forward through the station's defenses with clear-eyed precision. "We're breaking them already," he said quietly to Amelia over the communications line. But Darkstorm's eyes were sharper, keener. "This is only the beginning, Tarnus. Now, we turn the tide of this war. There's no going back." As enemy reinforcements poured in from nearby systems, Amelia's plan unfolded. A relentless war machine had begun its march. This was no longer a retaliation. It was the unification of humanity under a single banner. Victory wasn't just about strategy or force. It was the embodiment of their will to survive. And they would make sure the Empire would never forget the cost of making humanity its enemy.